Go change.
Wait, let's do a curtain call.
Well, that's what we're going to do. Curtain call and get up and back. Everybody that has to put that jack.
Have more into it.
We don't have any problems with the cat.
Everybody else got wet, but I didn't. Are they going to change the costumes?
Yes. Yeah, and then we'll fill a bucket of water.
We've got
Great.
several buckets.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
Well, the Summer Garden Theatre started, gosh, almost 50 years ago. It was back in the 60s, and this was a really, really very dynamic time, both in the city of Annapolis and across the country. It was a time when great things were happening. So much in the national level, a lot of the environmental legislation was passed. So it was a creative time. There was a lot of energy. Things were happening. And in Annapolis, it was the beginnings of the boat show. It was the beginnings of the theater. Main Street, which had been really dead because there was this, this mall that was built outside of town, and a lot of businesses had left. So it was a kind of a really dead town.
You got to remember that there wasn't much in Annapolis back then. There are a lot of stores closed, boarded up, and so people came in wherever they could find entertainment.
Joan Baldwin, who was the first, she was the creator actually of the Summer Garden Theatre. She was a woman that had a lot of creative ideas and also a lot of energy, and she was able to gather people together to do things. And so when she saw that vacant building sitting there where it is now, of course, still the same building, just not vacant, she said, this is where we should have our summer theater.
And there were a lot of people who were anxious to get things going on downtown, and to have this wonderful outdoor theater downtown, they figured was a real asset. And so a lot of people jumped in and made it happen. Evidently, it rained quite a bit when they were doing the magic to turn it into a theater. I have pictures of Joan Baldwin and others standing in the mud with umbrellas as the work was progressing. And when it was finally done, they looked around and said, "This is great. We have an outdoor theater, but we have a mud pit." And Paul Pearson, who was with Historic Inns, came to the rescue and volunteered and donated sod. So they sodded the theater area, and suddenly they had what they called an outdoor garden. They called the actual theater space the garden. They had a garden because it had this lovely grass, and they put the folding chairs on the grass. What they found out over the course of the next couple of years was that grass and folding chairs didn't really hold up very well. So within 2 or 3 years, they had replaced the grass with gravel, and the folding chairs then worked a lot better. Reading the very first program, that very first summer behind the Carvel Hall Hotel, they were very clear. Joan Baldwin, I'm sure, is the one that wrote this. They were very clear in trying to explain what they were doing, that this was an experiment, and they all acknowledged that the people were drawn from other theater groups, primarily from colonial players. They acknowledged all the good work that was going on roundabout in other theaters, the Mayo Players for one, and others. And they made it clear that they were not trying to compete with any of those theaters, that all of those theaters were dark in the summer. And they wanted to provide an opportunity for people to perform in the summer, particularly young people coming home from college.
They were in the parking lot, so it was difficult. They were on the tar, and no real sets that I remember, little pieces here and there. But I remember it was a good show. It was fun.
You enjoyed it.
It was the experience of going out, being outside for the first time, the Paker House in the background. It was a neat thing, yeah.
saw Brigadoon on a flatbed trailer in the courtyard of what is now Carvel Hall. I had never been in a production. I was a brand new faculty member at the Naval Academy, and whatever got us down to see Brigadoon was a kind of a fortuitous situation. I watched it. I was impressed with what I saw, especially seeing what could be done on a flatbed trailer on a hot summer night in Annapolis.
It was only natural to stay outside, which was good, except for the rains.
Like everybody who has ever worked there, I think, for Pete's sake, get a retractable roof. You see them all over now, for pity's sake. But other than that...
Most of Annapolis theaters today are state-of-the-art in every way. Cozy in winter, in fall and spring. In summer they have air conditioning. So you gotta be crazy to work in this place. Singing and dancing with sweat in your face. Remember your lines, try to look alive. Dressed in Woolworth's 95 for the hardest ticket in town. Though they said it's a mistake here, no one will come here to see it. A play by William Shakespeare.
What I recall about the building was it was dark green. There were no stairs to the second level. It was a ladder. There was a lot of straw around. There was no wall separating the courtyard from the theater itself, obviously. So the street noise was even more exciting. Made more exciting by the fact that there was no tech in the sense of sound. It was, if you're not loud enough to be heard at the back of the theater, you're not loud enough.
Physically, it was similar, but certainly not as tricked out as it is now. There was no tech booth. There was no balcony up above for the techies to run around. There was no even a platform back there. And inside the old building, there was no real box office. People stood there and on tables and sold tickets, and it wasn't really as pretty as it is now. Only the outside was.
The stage was squishy. The audience was squishier, especially when it rained.
You had to rebuild a stage, you rebuild a stage. It wasn't their job. You know, you just did whatever needed to be done, and to me, that's part of what made it. We gathered together and went, so we want to do something on and off nights, and it was like, yeah, why not?
After shows, we'd all go down to King George Street, again, right near where Carvel Hall is now, and where there is now a condo. It used to be called the Red Coach, which we conveniently referred to as the Red Roach, as a place to go and drink, and Dick played piano. And it was always we do the whole show over again in a much more relaxed sort of way.
Well, of course, to me, the beginnings of Summer Garden Theatre and the beginnings of Colonial Players with this musically, all started in my club, wherever I was playing. I don't mean that as braggadocio, but that's where everything was going on, was where I was playing the piano.
I will never forget, after the shows, we always went somewhere late at night, and it would be 1 o'clock in the morning when I'd get home, and I'd get up at 6:30 in the morning and go to work. How did I do that? I have no idea. The first place was called the Captain's Table in the 70s, and that was out on Route 50, and Dick Gessner played the piano, and we all went afterwards. He then went to Marmaduke's in Eastport, and we used to go there almost every Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. And the casts of the shows would sing along. It was wonderful. The fact that there's a lack of a piano bar now in downtown is a shame, because that was a wonderful experience.
My mother came home and said we were going to work together on a play at a theater. And the theater was Annapolis Summer Garden Theatre, and the play was Okay. Okay, you're okay with me, you're a dear.
Okay was all these fabulous, glorious women with all these fabulous, glorious costumes. And at the end of the show, we had made a birthday cake.
A wedding cake.
Wedding cake. Sorry about that. The wedding cake was filled theater.
6 feet high.
I mean, it was monstrous. And these women go up there, and when did they
Well, the man and woman marched up the back of the thing, up to the top of the tier, and then all these doves were released behind the thing.
all the homing pigeons in the whole county were. Every night we had to go out and collect these damn pigeons.
Well, actually, they went home. They went home. They were fine.
I always came back to Summer Garden. When they called and asked me to do a show, I just wanted to come back and do it. 85, we did Annie, and here's the 50th anniversary, and that was the 15th anniversary. And I remember the cake.
Many years ago, we decided to do Annie. And so some of the kids from the local kids, and my niece for one, became very interested, and they got to be really good friends. So they spent the whole summer going to parties together, and it even continued through the school year. And the next year, there were a few of them that got to be in The Sound of Music. And again, that was it, then it was over. And then the next year, it was Evita, and there was just even less kids that got to be in Evita than had been in the others. So Steve and I began to talk about the fact that why don't we try to put something together that maybe we could get more of the local kids into. So he said that he would try to write it with Mike Gillis. And he said, but we're going to need a music director. And I thought, oh, my God. But I said, okay, I'll give this a shot. He said, but I'm not going to produce it. I'm not going to direct it.
Bobby, who directed and choreographed Talent Machine, of course, that was Bobby Smith. And she was a phenomenon. She was very, very talented. The kids involved loved her, but they were a little bit intimidated by her.
But they respected her.
They respected her
Yes.
because they knew in the end that the product was going to be so good.
The kids are so talented, and they and their families bring so much vitality to the theater that she wondered if there wasn't some way that we could do something to keep that going, to keep that energy a part of the theater, and to give these kids an outlet. And we knew we had a terrific resource in Bobby, who was just great working with the kids.
One point I said to her, Bobby, Talent Machine is not my life. And she was quite offended, really, that I dared to have a job and have something else to do.
I know.
No, but she, like I said, she was a phenomenon.
Would come in board and say, I would love for Summer Garden to do this, this, and this. And of course you knew the reason they wanted to do this was because they wanted to star in that show. It's like, this would be great for me. So, you considered that, of course, because you had to be aware of the people that were available to do the roles and, things like that. But you also wanted to pick something that would be attractive to our audience, that they would come and patronize. At that point with the theater still being rather young, we didn't want to do anything too esoteric or maybe on the edge. We just wanted to get big musicals, that would attract audiences that we could get much needed revenue. they had done a combination of dramatic and musicals, because they found that the audiences liked the razzle-dazzle of the musicals, and the patronage was higher. So I think that was one of the big reasons for that decision.
The role of the judge, who has 5 lines, we gave to a different person every night. And we had Chick from Chicken Ruth's Deli. He did the judge one night. We had Ben Cardin, who was then just a lowly delegate, and he did a role one night. The mayor of Annapolis came in and did a role, and that was really, really fun.
You're all charged with disorderly conduct, assault and battery, inciting to riot, several other equally serious violations of the laws of the city. Who will speak on your behalf?
Hello, Patrol Beacon.
And people had no idea that it was an open theater in there. They, you just walk by, you think maybe it has a roof. Wow, how many times did we wish it had a roof?
In the event of rain, storm the box office and violently bam! You're 450 back. When that fails, run screaming to your car and sit and wait for 15 minutes in your soggy clothes and frizzy hair. Whoops, here he comes. Don't panic.
The problem would be that the rain would eventually rot out sections of the stage. So you might get out there one night and kind of feel like, as you were dancing, the stage wasn't going to be there much longer. We had that alley. Is that alley still there right behind this, the wall? And that was rough, running up and down that alley to make your exits and entrances. Yeah. So, but as I said, it was a family and we had a good time.
First to reel tapes, and then in the later years to CDs, or God forbid cassettes, and you couldn't stop because it was recorded. So during the musical numbers, it was full speed ahead, and of course the motorcycles and the ambulances came through only when you were singing the ballads. That was a rule.
But now I understand. Shake the hand of a brand new fool.
Once in every show, there comes a song like this. It starts off soft and low and ends up with a kiss. Oh, where is the song that goes like this? Where is it? Where?
A sentimental song that costs a magic spell. They all will hum along. We'll overact like hell. Oh, this is the song that goes like this.
Yes, it is.
Yes,
it is.
Yes, it is.
Fish gotta swim and birds gotta fly. I I gotta love one man till I die. Can't help loving that man of mine.
Summer Garden is magical in that it's the only theater I've ever worked at where I really made deep friendships. We were all in our 20s when we started, and there were several women. We call ourselves the divas now. You may have heard of us. But through the years, we all not only worked in the shows, but we were friends off stage and outside the theater. And that doesn't happen very often. I've worked for 30 years, 40 years in theater. And I love the people I work with, and we all are a big family when you're doing a show. And then you see them from time to time in other shows, but somehow the friendships don't develop. But at Summer Garden, there's 6, 8 women that are the divas, and I could name them: Sally, Debbie, Nori, Jill, and Diana, and you know, all of them. Margaret Allman became one of the divas. You are certainly a diva, Eloise. You know, and it's wonderful because we all just became fast friends, and now, my goodness, we're in our 60s, and we're still friends.
We'll always be bosom buddies, friends, sisters, and pals. We'll always be bosom buddies. If life should reject you, there's me to protect you. Die if I say your tongue is vicious.
If I call you uncouth,
It's simply that. Who else but a bosom buddy will sit down and tell you the truth?
One of the wonderful things about theater, and Summer Garden Theatre in particular, is that it's a very forgiving place, a very accepting place, a place that accepts all kinds of people who are just a little bit different than the average person, and so it sort of became a home.
But not when we're together. We're together here on Avenue Q. We live on Avenue Q. Our friends do too. Till our dreams come true. We live on Avenue Q. This is real life. We live on Avenue Q. You're gonna love it. We live on Avenue Q. Welcome to Avenue Q. Look at me, I'm Sandra Dee, lousy with virginity. Won't go to bed till I'm legally wed. I can't, I'm Sandra Dee. We see the sky is clear with the lights quite shimmering in the dim dawn of night. So long have we been blind, but finally we unwind the plot. The truth is this, we find that
People are fabulous now. I was very, very impressed with the quality of what's going on at Summer Garden, and I'm thrilled that it's still a community theater, that it looks so good, that the physical space has been renovated, so they've got some great equipment, and they got that booth up top, and every time I go in there, I'm a little nostalgic and think, am I too old to direct another show there? Maybe not. Maybe I'll do another one someday. But I wish it another 50 years of wonderful, wonderful community involvement.
Being a part of Summer Garden Theatre isn't just giving up half a summer or a summer. It's being a part of something greater. We do this, and we're here for you. You know, this isn't just your time. This is us creating something, and something bigger than a play.
It's all very interesting, how it went from being the abandoned Shaw Blacksmith shop to being theater, and it required a lot of work. I'm still astounded that all of those local people jumped in to make it into a theater.
She walks in,